Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Coralyn, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl. All right, welcome to another episode of Lead Like a Girl. I am your host today, Coralyn, and I'm here with my good friend, Jamie.
Hello.
Jamie, how are you doing today?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm good. We are actually down one lady, sadly. Jessica's not able to meet us, but we're going to roll with it just as we normally do. We are diving into a really big topic today. I actually am super excited. So Jamie, Jessica, and I have put together a 3-part series kicking off the new year and trying to do all things great. So we have experts in financial planning. Next, we have a health and wellness coach that's going to be with us. And then to wrap up our 3-part series is we have a woman entrepreneur and life planner that I'm really excited about. So today we have a fantastic guest. Her name is Hannah Rein. She is all things money, finance, budgeting. Hannah, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How was your day today?
Busy. I mean, pretty much first day back after the holidays, so it's always a bit chaotic, but it was good to get back in the rhythm of routine for sure.
Yeah.
Hannah, do you feel like your first day back is almost like a vacation because you're away? Because you're just back and like all you have to do today is work?
Right. I know. It's the toddler and 1-year-old are with childcare. And so all I focused on was work. And that's so much easier than being a mom all day, for sure.
And I feel like I'm totally in the opposite realm of that. So like the idea of sitting in front of spreadsheets and calculators and numbers, it sounds like not a vacation in my world. But I'm so happy that you're so good at these things to share all your wealth of knowledge. So Hannah, you're new to the show, but we always start off with a 1-minute fast. So it's a great get to know you. It's just no pressure. It's just a fun question. And so, like I said, we're talking about finance. So we're talking about budgeting, investing, financial planning, all the different great things. But we're going to lay it out on the table. I want to know, ladies, what is the most frivolous thing that you've ever purchased? And maybe it's not the most, maybe it's maybe it lands on the top 5. Like, what is your big waste of money? We're just going to let it out there. Jamie, you got one?
Oh my gosh, you guys. So I'm going to try to make this a short story because I could make it like the whole 30-minute episode. So we used to go to home shows. We used to have to, we would have a booth at a home show for a previous
started off as like, as seen on TV.
So we're working on a booth at a home show, and one of the booths across the way had this cookware that they were demonstrating, and as they're demonstrating this cookware, they're making chicken. So as you can imagine, you're in like, I don't even know, like a dome, you know, like a sports arena, and so it doesn't smell like anything, and then you smell this delicious chicken cooking and I'm working like a 4-hour shift at the home show, and all I smell for 4 hours is this awesome chicken, and I'm like, what is this cookware? So of course I was like absolutely like laser beamed into the demonstration. It was the waterless cookware, and it's stainless steel, and there's all these things that you do to cook with this cookware, and you know, fast forward, I'm in a payment plan cookware. I am in a 36-month payment plan for my 8-piece set of cookware because chicken smells delicious. So
that is,
oh my gosh,
awesome.
It's the best. Could you think of a better way to sell that? I mean, no. So
definitely not.
Starving salespeople
all over the place.
Like all there is at a home show to eat is like the hot dogs and the free popcorn, and then you're making chicken. So
yeah.
Okay,
Oh my gosh. I feel like my that is way better than anything that I could think of. But I feel like mine is all the things that I've thought about, like the frivolous things that I've purchased is all like, I feel like I should just buy these because I want to like impress the thing, like show up to the party or show up to the event, like, whatever. And I remember, so when we worked for the company back in the day, we had this big conference and it was always themed. Like sometimes
is it a costume?
It wasn't a costume. Those things I were not involved. Those are more on the creative side. But it was a black tie event. I remember they paid for Hootie and the Blowfish to come sing for our company. So it was like this huge thing. And I just wanted to show up dressed to the nines. And I, of course, go and try on, the couple, like the low $100 dresses. And I'm like, these are all right. And so I end up walking past this rack and it had this like Sarah Jessica Parker-esque Sex and the City dress. And it was black and it had a bunch of tulle and it was just gorgeous. And I tried it on without looking on the price tag. And I had this thing on and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so like such a waste of money. And I think it was probably $500 or $600. And I couldn't think of one other thing that I would ever wear this dress for. And I took it off, tried on a couple other dresses, and I put that dress back on and I'm like, I don't care. I'm just buying it. So I ended up buying that. I remember that dress and it's still sitting up in my closet to this day because it was like an investment piece. And I think I've tried to put it on and wear it to a couple other things and it just does not. It was completely a one-hit wonder. I need to like Marie Kondo my closet, just get rid of the sucker, but it's like, it's still there.
Can you please post a picture of that on our website?
Of this dress. Yeah.
Cut out of Hootie.
Hannah, do you have the financial planner? Do you have a frivolous purchase? Have you been making good decisions since you were born? Like, what is
No. The one thing that popped into my mind was back in college, my friends and I used to buy lottery tickets, which is definitely frivolous and a total waste of money throwing it down the toilet. But the other thing that popped into my mind when Jamie was telling her story was back around that time, we had these like late night shows on and these late night infomercials would come on. And I remember one night we purchased, it was like this taco salad mold that like you basically make like the tortilla into this fun taco salad shape. And we bought that one night like super late. And honestly, to this day, we still use it once in a while. But that was such a just random, like what the heck type of purchase.
Those late night and home show, I mean, they have got it down, right? Like
they know what's up.
That's awesome.
Jamie has me beat though. I didn't have an 8-month payment plan for that. So.
For the tacos. That's good. Good. That's great. Well, I want to give a little bit of a background on you, Hannah, because I'm really excited for this conversation. So you are a CPA by training, but you're a financial educator, you're a wife, you're a mom of 2 little ones. And you and your husband founded Financially Engaged. So it's a platform really dedicated to help people just reach their financial goals, help people pay off debt and really make wise investments. And, both Jamie and I kind of creeped out your website preparing for this. And you can see the passion that you have to help people in all of these areas. And so I'm really excited for you to kick us off and talk about this. But I think that as we kind of were chatting a little earlier, part of what we want to talk about in the future is kind of where you came from. Can you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Yeah. So it kind of all started back in 2008. My husband, Brady, at the time he was in high school and his parents made him go to a personal finance class. And when he got to the class, he was surrounded by people in their 50s and 60s. And then it was him, this 18-year-old kid. And he just felt so out of place. Like, where did he land? And all these people were telling him like, man, we really wish we knew all of this when we were younger before we had made all of these mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was kind of like the first light bulb moment that went off for him. Ultimately, you know, he finished the class and didn't think about it again for a while. But then he and I met when we were at UW-Madison in college, and we were good friends for a while. I remember he invited me back to his parents' house for spring break one year, and he literally looked at me after a few glasses of wine and was like, do you want to watch some personal finance videos with me?
How romantic.
And I literally think my jaw dropped to the floor. Like, who are you? No, I don't want to watch personal finance videos after we've had like a bottle of wine. But yeah, joke's on me because we officially started dating a few months later and obviously got married long after that. You know, that was kind of like, we really had always been passionate about personal finance, and I graduated with a ton of student debt, about 40K I was paying off. And so that really jump started my passion for, you know, how do I pay off this debt? I hate being in debt. And so now I need to create a budget. So I just started teaching myself all these things. And slowly but surely, our friends and coworkers started asking us questions like, where'd you get your budget? And tips and tricks, those types of things. And so we realized, oh, like other people want to know this stuff too, and nobody's taught this anywhere. And so fast forward a few more years to 2018 is when we got married and we decided to start Financially Engaged as a side hustle, just to share the things that we were doing for our own finances. And it's just slowly grown over time. You know, we're both CPAs, and over the last 7 years or so, I've been working for a startup, and the last few months or so, it just was kind of this final clicking moment where I needed to go full time on this. It has been such a passion project for so long, and I knew that if I was working on this full time every day, I could put so much more into it and help so many others. So that's the Cliff Notes version of the last 12 years or so, probably more than that, 15.
That's great. I was so interested. We were talking a little bit before this about just how you started once you started out on your own. And
Yeah.
yes, Coralyn's right. I was absolutely stalking your website several times today. You know, I love how you have and I'm looking at it right now. I love that you have the investing for beginners, the cash dash, the debt payoff. But also, I think what spoke to me is your personal story of just when you graduated college, you had that college debt. And I think that's so common. I mean,
Yeah.
I have two daughters, one that graduated a couple of years ago and one that's about to graduate in the spring.
Okay.
And both of them will have debt. I mean, they both took out loans.
Like
And
many people
yes,
do.
yeah. So, and it's so unfortunate to start out life like that. And I don't want to, can you talk a little bit more about that? Maybe just, I know you've got several things, but can you talk a little bit more about just, I guess, handling debt and maybe some of your suggestions in that? Because I just feel like it's so common. And unfortunately, you're 22 years old and you're going to start out life and, you know, you've got this hanging over your head.
Yeah. And I feel like when I graduated, I didn't really know going like through college how much debt I actually was going to be facing. So many people have so much more than I did, but that really was the inception of what's like started this whole personal finance journey for me. And so what I found to be the most helpful was to just write down all the debts. It can be daunting at first to like just look at it all out and face it, but that's the easiest way to get organized. And so there's really two common methods of paying off debt that you'll generally hear about. Probably the most popular one is the snowball method. And that's where you list out all your debts from the order of lowest balance to highest balance. And so on all the debts, you're paying the minimum required payment. But if you have any extra funds, you're going to be funneling that extra money to the debt with the lowest balance first. And the idea behind this is that it builds momentum. You start paying off this smaller debt, and then you feel like you got to win. And so then you start going to the next and then the next. And honestly, that is such a great method because a lot of people just feel so overwhelmed by their debt and they do need those small wins. And so I started out paying my debt that way. But then as I started to do more research, I realized there's this other debt payoff method called the avalanche method. And conversely, with this method, you list out all your debts in order of highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. And so again, you're paying the minimum on all of them. But if you have extra money, that is getting funneled to the debt with the highest interest rate first. And so technically under this method, you're going to pay off your debt faster because you're not paying as much interest and you're getting rid of that debt with the highest interest rate first. And so once I learned like the math behind that, that was what really clicked for me. And I ended up paying off my debt using that method, but you can be successful under both. And so that's why we created that debt payoff plan that you're looking at. It allows you to look at the debt payoff scenarios under both avalanche and snowball and choose what works for you. And the thing that was really hard for me during that time was I would have extra money, but I had no idea if I put this $1,000 bonus I got to my debt, does that really change like when I'm going to become debt free? Like, what is the impact that it's going to make? I was always asking myself these types of questions. And so that's how we built the debt payoff plan, is you can do these like little scenarios. Hey, I got a tax refund or a bonus or, whatever. I just want to pay an extra $200 a month to my debt. Like, how does that change when I'm going to be debt free? And once I was able to see those numbers change, it was so much more motivating to be able to, tell myself, hey, instead of spending the bonus that you got, that you want to do, put it towards your debt and it'll be so much better in the long run.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, Coralyn, you're on mute.
There we go. No, I was just saying sometimes it's so much easier just to buy the black dress. Yeah, I think that is the real key picture for me. I feel like especially when I was in my 20s, when I was thinking about buying a house and doing all these things, is that looking at the actual numbers and seeing it like not just pie in the sky, like, oh, if I pay this off or I do these different things, it is actually, you can see the numbers that if I put an extra $1,000, or even if sometimes it was just even if I put an extra $100 per month toward this debt, how much faster on the back end that you can see that debt go away. And I think, like, to your point, just being really honest with yourself and just laying it all out and just like, this is where I'm at. We can talk about how we got here, maybe simultaneously, right?
Right.
I think, but that's part of the problem too. Or do you see with some of your clients, or do you do some counseling in terms of the people that you're working with that have kind of bigger debt loads? Mm-hmm. Like, let's talk about how we got there in the first place and maybe how to avoid that in the future. Or for some of our listeners, like, these are the traps that some people fall into when it comes to overspending.
Yeah. And, I've talked to thousands of couples over the, duration of the time that I've been doing this. And there's so much psychologically that goes into the why behind why someone might be in debt. And I've found that the biggest thing you can look at is your childhood. So what were your earliest money memories? How did your parents manage money? Did they talk to you about money? Did they fight about money? What was that dynamic like? Was money always really tight, or was it super abundant? Those early childhood experiences really shape your views around money in adulthood. And I work more with couples. And so I've found that just having each person in a relationship just ask, those questions about the other just creates so much more empathy towards the other person and understanding, instead of just like this inherent conflict. If you came from different upbringings, it just brings people together on why they are the way they are and facilitates that conversation into, okay, so this is why I did this. How do we improve?
Could you share with us some of the things that you've observed? Like if you grew up in this way, people tend to be this way with
Yeah.
money.
So, for example, if you grew up in a household where money was super tight, in adulthood, I've seen many circumstances where that person now feels the safest if they have a huge emergency fund, a lot of cash stashed away, because they just feel this like sense of nervousness and stress if they don't have that. And so if they're then married to somebody who's more of a frivolous spender who maybe didn't have that type of upbringing, creates this conflict. And so that person needs to understand why the person who's the big saver is the way they are. And once they have those conversations about those early money experiences, it's like a light bulb goes off. People are just like so much more understanding.
Oh yeah, that just makes me wonder. Okay, when you talk about relationship problems, okay, what what are the top 5 problems? Where's money in that? I bet it's really high up there.
Hi. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
I feel like when I Google, what's the number one cause of divorce, it's always like infidelity and money problems. They're always just
yeah,
like beating each other out.
yeah, yeah. I kind of wonder, and this might be more of a, I think I have more of a budget question, so I can wait until we get into budget stuff. But I
Yeah.
was kind of curious how, just your lifestyle and your career affects things like that in terms of like, let's say you're self-employed and how
Mhm.
maybe, and I don't know if we can segue, but
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
got me, now you've got my brain going because I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, if you're self-employed, how are you then budgeting your money? Or core, I was thinking, when we were in sales, so we were commission. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so you've got your salary, so you're kind of budgeting off your salary. Well, then now you've got commission. So how you never ever have the same paycheck. So it's like, how do you
Yeah.
budget in that way? Do you mind
Yeah.
talking about that a little bit?
So up until the last 4 or 5 months or so, I've always had a consistent paycheck that was super easy to budget, and there was never really any surprises. And now in the entrepreneur world, I have it's such a guessing game on how much money I'm going to make each month. And so I've actually really liked having this experience because I really understand now how other people feel when they have this variable income. And so my biggest piece of advice for anybody navigating that is, you have to make some sort of plan for what you're going to make, even though it is going to be a lot more challenging to understand exactly what it's going to be. So my recommendation is to forecast conservatively. What do you think is the low end of what you're going to make? And then plan your spending if you were to only get that low end. And then great. If you make more money, fabulous. You can update the budget or your spending as you go throughout the month. But I think being more conservative just avoids any hiccups along the way.
So I think that the interesting thing that I feel like you touched on is that this whole conversation that you have with your significant other, your spouse, and
Mhm.
I've always found that to be really challenging because I feel like my
Yeah.
husband and I, we've just by some miracle from God landed in the same spot, but it didn't start off that way. And especially when we were young, we've been married for almost 15 years now,
Yeah.
but it was just like we came from different scopes, and I have
Mhm.
always been a saver and he's always a spender. And not always, like he just, and so like even just having that conversation without me sounding like a total Scrooge,
Yeah.
and it's not like I don't like to spend money, but it's just like I could, because I grew up kind of lower income, and so I think that
Mhm.
like that having a safety net has always been really something that I've always been cognizant about. So what are some of the questions
Yeah.
that you would suggest couples ask each other to kind of open up that conversation, whether they're newly married or just try to go down this rabbit hole together?
Yeah, well, you're not alone for sure. I mean, I feel like the saver always marries the spender. So that's just like you guys are just,
That's just
connected from the start.
Didn't like Nate Bargatze have a joke about that him and his wife were like that?
that
And
she's
then
really
he's
cheap.
like, if we can't both be spenders, we'd end up homeless. Like the
Yeah,
other.
someone has to balance the other one out. No,
Yeah.
but like joking aside, it causes tension in relationships, obviously. I mean, you felt it. I think everybody's felt that to some degree. And so after just hearing this over and over from couples, we just needed to find a way to fix this problem. And so that's why we set out to create, we call it our cash dash, which is essentially our financial plan that we use as a couple. And the goal of the cash dash is to focus you on your goals, not on the nitpicky little expenses that causes fights between couples. Because when you're focused on your goals, you feel like you're more of a team working towards that end goal. And so having that like why in mind helps you cut back in areas of your spending that maybe you don't care about as much, or it's easier to cut back there when you realize that you're doing this to get to that more important goal that you guys have. And so that's been just so powerful for us personally and everybody else that we've gotten feedback from, those that use this tool is you're just reframing the conversation to be in a more positive light and not focusing on the negative of those nitpicky expenses.
That's so great. I feel like because even just in our last episode, we're talking about making New Year's resolutions and all the things that, well, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do this going off. And it's so sad. It just makes you feel like, okay. And then I'm also not going to have any joy. And,
and I'm just going to be sad every day.
I know. So I think that reframing it in that way, that it's just like, okay, this might be a give up or a not now, but maybe later type of a thing to have the big prize at the end, right? You know?
Right.
But you're touching on that too, Coralyn, where we had also talked about like figuring out what the goal is. And I feel like Hannah, you're talking about that too. It's like, if you can talk with your significant other about, okay, let's figure out a goal so that we know what we're working towards. Like step one. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, just naming the goal, putting a timeline on it, putting an amount is like a huge hurdle for people. A lot of people, they don't go through this exercise. It feels like second nature for me because we've just done this for so long, but that's not the norm. And so that's a big part of the exercise in the cash dash is just like putting everything on paper, just like we were talking about with the debts, just writing everything down. And we personally, I mean, as CPAs who are running a personal finance education company, we hate budgeting. Like a lot of people
the truth comes out. It's horrible.
A lot of people are surprised to hear that. It's like, who actually likes budgeting? Very, very few people. And so you have to create a system, whether it's the cash dash or maybe you like budgeting, whatever. You just have to find a tool that you like using because that's the one you're going to be more consistent with and, enable you to have those conversations with your spouse on a, cadence that works for you, and then you can actually make progress towards your goals. But it all comes down to the system you have in place for those money conversations, and it has to work for you both.
I feel like there's so much, what do I want to say, like intimacy in that conversation with your significant other too, because I think about that and I'm like, I don't want him to know how much money I spend on purses. You know what I mean? So, which sounds actually ridiculous. But like you have me thinking about my own budget and I'm thinking about it going, okay, in Coralyn, when you talk about frivolous spending, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I bet I spend an obscene amount of money on stupid stuff every month, and I don't even want to tell you what it is. It's just like, and I don't want him to know either.
Well, I think it goes both ways. You always hear about, oh, women spend so much money on shopping and blah, blah, blah. But men are also spending money on things like fantasy football. And there's just all these random things that we both spend money on. And honestly, I do think that it's healthy for you each to have an amount that you've agreed on ahead of time that you can spend on whatever you want, no questions asked. You don't have to tell them. So if you want to go buy a purse, or he wants to go gamble on fantasy football, like whatever, as long as it's a dollar amount that you've decided ahead of time, you don't have to both agree on every single expense. Like that's just not realistic.
Yeah.
You know, you're always going to have differences of opinions. You're never going to agree on every single thing.
I remember my mom and my stepdad used to give each other money for their like birthday, and I always thought that was so strange. But like she would open her birthday
Did your dad
card.
think of that? Because that sounds like such a dude move. Like, how about we just give each other money?
He would like give her money and be like, just spend it on whatever you want, you know? Or she would give him money, like spend it on whatever you want. And I always thought like, that's so what? And now I'm thinking maybe they were smarter than I was.
Yeah.
Right?
There's something to that.
Take this money and just go do whatever.
I think that there's such wisdom in that, Hannah, because I feel like even again, like, yeah, everything's like coming full circle, like thinking about all the past little nitpicky fights that I've had with my husband. And it's just like, why do we need another gadget? Or why do you need another piece of workout equipment? Like you have like 19 things in that room over there that you can do a push-up with, but we need to have one more bar. Yeah. But if it's just like his little pile of cash that he can spend on whatever it is, if he's buying peanut butter or push-up bars, like I should not care, right? Like, it's just like it's whatever it is. That I feel like that just that little nugget alone will probably save marriages across the world.
I believe so too.
Like just don't even look. It's fine. It's good. Well, so I want to segue a little bit into the fun part, I feel like, and that is investing. So we've got our budget in check, we've got our debt going in the right direction, we've got extra cash. What do we do with it? What do you would say if I'm like just investing 101, I don't know anything about anything, what are your best advice for where do I start?
Yeah, I mean, the number one question I get asked in my DMs is how the heck do I get started investing? You know, what do I invest in? What accounts do I open? How much do I invest? And I'm not shocked that I'm getting all these questions because it's not taught anywhere. We're just pushed out into the world, expected to know all this, but schools don't really teach this. If you're lucky, maybe your parents taught you, but that's pretty rare as well because our parents never were taught this either. And so that's why when I went full-time on Financially Engaged, I was like, the first thing I'm going to do is create a course on investing for beginners and how to get people off the ground and get started. And also because there's such an underserved market, a lot of financial advisors won't work with couples, people who are in their 20s and 30s just starting out who maybe don't have a ton of money to invest. They're looked over often by the financial advising industry. So there was this gap that these people still need to learn how to invest. It's so important, especially because they have so much time on their hands. And so I created a course that walks them through how you get started. And if anybody comes on and says, hey, you need to invest in XYZ stock, like that's a huge red flag. Investing is so personal. And that's why I've created this system that walks people through writing down their goals, like we were just saying with the budgeting discussion. Writing down your goals is so important at the beginning of investing because you need to know what you're working towards. Are you investing for a down payment for a house? Are you investing for retirement? Is your goal 5 years away or is it 30 years away? Answering those questions is critical because that's going to dictate how you're going to invest and which accounts you're going to choose. Maybe you're investing for your kid's college plan that's 20 years away. Well, then you would consider looking at 529 plans, which is a college savings account, versus maybe just a regular brokerage account, which is more of a flexible investment account. So that's how we structure the course in terms of what are your goals, what's the timeline, then learning about all the different accounts and what is the stock market. And then at the very end, picking the investments that go in those accounts. But there's a whole process and things you need to think through. And it's not hard. It's honestly quite simple to invest. The guys on Wall Street all try to make investing seem like it's so complex. And really, it's not. When you're buying index funds or ETFs or mutual funds, it's basically like buying a basket of a big group of funds. So you're not picking stocks, which is really risky. And so once you learn these basic behaviors and just recommendations on how to go about creating your portfolio that's based on your goals and your risk tolerance, it's really, really easy nowadays. I mean, you can go on and do it at Fidelity by yourself, or you can have a robo advisor, which is kind of like an intermediary. You're not totally doing it alone. They're kind of helping you, but you're not like fully hiring a financial advisor. But there's so many different options on how you can get started. And it really is quite simple. The other thing I hear a lot is, oh, I need a lot of money to start investing. And that is not true. You can go on to Fidelity or these big brokerages and get started with literally $1. And so, of course, we're hoping we can, create a system where we're investing a bit more than that per month, but it doesn't have to be a lot, especially if you're nervous, which a lot of people are nervous to start investing. You can get your feet wet and just do like little amounts each month and then really start to learn how to do it.
That's awesome. That's one thing that I noticed. Just again, I loved your website, but I felt like that and just every tool and resource that you had listed was something that made it very, very simple for really people of any kind of person could utilize some tool or resource that you had on your website, no matter what what their means were.
Absolutely.
That was absolutely the feel that I had when I went on it. So I'm glad I had a chance to check that out before and I really wish Jessica would have been on here too, because she's brought up her and her husband talking about their goals and their finances and talk, sharing things like that. So I wish she would have been able to catch this too, but so anyway.
Yeah, I feel like the challenge that I feel like sometimes I have, or that I've heard people have, is that you hear all of these diamond in the rough stories, like, oh, I put this money in this stock and it grew like by $1 billion. And now, and it's just feel a little, even personally, like, I'm like, how do you find those things? And then the more I talk to people like yourself, Hannah, and other they're like, you don't really. I mean, maybe you can if you're like some of those like Wolves of Wall Street, but generally speaking, and maybe you would agree with this, that I've heard, is that it's just you just have to play the long game, right? And that's really the trick.
Yeah. And I mean, it does come back to your risk tolerance. So there could be a small portion of your portfolio that maybe you do really want to invest in something more risky. Go for it. Like if that's a portion of your portfolio that you understand the risks and you're comfortable with that, then like that's the most important thing, is that you understand that you could lose the money. Like, and all investing involves risks. There's a wide spectrum of the level of risk for sure.
So we had a question that had come in, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but it's parents talking about what the best way is to save, invest for their littles. And I was all ears on that conversation because I've got a 10-year-old boy, and I'm wondering what is, for somebody like me, plus or minus, what do you recommend when you have kids? Do you save up for them? Do you let them go on their own? Let them learn kind of like how we did? What is the best? What is that? Because I feel like neither one of those are like the easy way.
Well, literally in my course, before I get to the kids investment account section, I make everybody watch this video that's essentially saying you have to put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. It's just like when you're on a plane. Like, if you are investing for your kids, but you don't have your retirement funded, that is not going to end well for you or your kids. You're going to get to retirement and probably have to go to your kids and ask them to help fund your retirement. That is not the goal, obviously. So it really comes back to, are you in a good situation with your own investments? If so, then we can start talking about the best use of funds for your kids. But even if you are in that situation, to be able to invest for them, it comes back to the goals again. Do you want to invest for their college, or do you just want to invest for like a down payment for their house, or for them to go on a trip or plan their wedding, or, use it however they want? There's different accounts that would be more strategic depending upon what your goals are.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Jamie, do you have any other questions? So many.
I know. I could talk to Hannah for like the next 5 hours.
I know. Can you just plan out all of our lives, please?
I know. Hannah, can you just plan our lives?
Can you budget for me, please? That's...
I only have one. I have one more question, and
Okay.
and that is, oh, sorry. This might be a tough one. I wrote it down because I was thinking about my own life, and I was thinking, when you're budgeting out your life, when you're thinking about investing, when you're thinking about debt, what if you're coming up to a point in your life when you literally don't have any extra money? You don't have anything extra. You are living paycheck to paycheck, and you're at the point in your life when you don't have anything to invest or to save or to budget. Do you have a suggestion for people in that point?
I mean, I think there are a lot of people in that situation, especially now with inflation going crazy the last few years. It's been so hard for people to keep up with the rising costs of everything. And we all know that salaries and compensation is not rising at that same rapid pace. I mean, my first piece of advice is you're not alone. And the first building block really is combing through all your expenses. What is there? What bill could you get rid of? What subscription do you no longer use? What could you negotiate a lower rate on if insurance constantly keeps going up? Can you negotiate that down? Can you shop around? Can you go different places for groceries that are cheaper? Really getting savvy with cutting costs anywhere you can, but you can only cut costs so much. It's there's a limit there. And so then the natural next point is, how do I raise my income? Is there any side hustle that I could pick up? Is there any promotion at my job that I could start having conversations with my boss about and start working towards? There are so many side hustles, even just like dog walking or doing Uber Eats, those types of things. Like they may seem like something you never do, but if you're really, really strapped, like you can get scrappy and try to do those types of things just to find a few extra dollars here and there. And then once you get your feet under yourself, really trying to build that emergency fund. At least $1,000 is what I try to get people to do when they're starting out, so that if something does happen, your car breaks down, which it always will break down at the worst possible time. Like it's not going to send you into this tizzy of what the heck do I do, or just, spin you into credit card debt. And so getting those financial foundations, expenses, income, negotiating where possible on both the expense and the income side, trying to get that emergency fund buffer. And then is when you start looking at, okay, how do I pay my debts faster? How do I start investing? But there are these checklist of items that you really do want to look at doing before you get into all the fancy things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good to hear that from you, because I think that, unfortunately, folks that might be in that position, that it is discouraging, because you think you have these goals in mind, and you might think to yourself, oh, I'd love to invest. I'd love to do this. I want a budget, but where do I start? So those are great ideas.
I love that. And to your point, that there's always I don't want to say always, there's most often an answer if you dig deep enough and you put in the work to figure it out. I love that idea. Side hustle, try to negotiate interest rates. Those are all like huge nuggets.
I mean, it's not easy, especially during these times, like I was mentioning, but you gotta just get scrappy and like start like one step in front of the other. You don't have to like tackle everything all at once. I feel like that also comes up a lot. It's like, oh my gosh, I have all these expenses and all these debts, and I want to start investing, but it's like, whoa. Pick one thing that you're going to do. And then you could do baby steps and start doing more and more. But that makes it so it's a little bit less overwhelming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm going to end our conversation here with a little bit of fun. Hannah, I'm going to put you on the hot spot. We've never done this before. Jamie has no idea what I'm doing right now.
I really have no idea.
I have no idea. Okay. I'm going to do a quick financial, like who Hannah is, this or that. So I'm just going to give you a pair of words and you're going to tell me what's your best. And it'll start off easy and we'll go a little bit. Okay. First of all, new car or used car?
Oh, used car for sure.
Hotel or Airbnb?
Oh, gotta say hotel.
Okay. Would you rather retire at 35 or win the lottery at 65?
Retire at 35. Time is the most important asset for me, for
That's
sure.
awesome. Gold bars or stacks of cash?
Well, gold bars have less chance of getting inflated away, so I'll go with that.
Are you a spreadsheet wizard or a calculator champion?
Oh man, I feel like I'm actually really bad at like mental math, but I probably have to go with spreadsheet wizard.
That's awesome. Piggy bank or Swiss bank?
Piggy bank.
Are you gonna spend on coffee or save for vacation?
Ooh,
I feel like there's got to be an answer C for both.
Yeah, I buy so much coffee out, but I will have to say save for a vacation because there's just nothing like that.
What's your favorite hotspot? Just for curious.
I love Napa.
Okay.
It's so beautiful.
So awesome. All right. Last one. Are you a frugal foodie or a splurge on taking out?
Splurge on taking out.
Nice. You got a favorite restaurant that you like to hit or genre of food?
Well, our favorite takeout place right now is called Walk in the Park in St. Louis Park. It's a Chinese Asian restaurant. Super good.
Awesome. Hannah, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm so excited that you made time to be with us on our podcast. But I do want to ask you if when our listeners want to find you and creep you out like Jamie and I have already done, how can they find you?
I can be found on my website, which is financiallyengaged.com. And I'm super active on Instagram, which is just at financiallyengaged.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen some of your videos. They're fantastic. Listeners, you have got to get on her Instagram, look her up, look at her website, download some of her content, her courses. I am going to be on that for sure. Your cash dash sounds exactly what I need for sure. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you again, listeners, for listening. You can find us at leadlikeagirllab.com. We're on all our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram. We just launched a new website with some new content and some new merch. So check that out also. And just keep on making financially wise information. Make sure message us if you have any questions for us or for Hannah. And until next time, just keep leading like a girl.
Bye. Thanks, Hannah.
Bye. Thank you, guys.